Во-первых, я знаю, когда наступит конец света.
I know when the world will end. The sun will turn into a white dwarf. Other things will happen too. Now, that will be the end of the world as we know it. So if this is what you mean by the end of the world, it will come even sooner. But I'm not afraid. It's inevitable.
Чего бояться, если это неизбежно?
And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people, against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Thus saith the Lord God. It shall also come to pass, that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil and to take a prey. To turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods, that dwell in the midst of the land. Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? Therefore, Son of man, prophesy, and say unto Gog, Thus saith the Lord God, In that day, when my people of Israel dwelleth safely, shalt thou not know it? And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty army. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, that I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. Thus saith the Lord God, Art thou he of whom I have spoken in old times by my servants the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years that I would bring thee against them? And it shall come to pass at the same time, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the field, and all creeping things that creep upon the earth, and all the men that are upon the face of the earth, shake at my presence. And the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother, and I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. And I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord.
And Jamie, there are new concerns this morning that Russia and Iran are helping Syria in its fight against the rebels. Syrian troops, it turns out, are now using sophisticated technology and tactics on the battlefield, according to analysts. And they say all that help comes from that man and his country, Tehran, as well as Moscow, all in an attempt to try and keep Bashar al-Assad in power. Will he hold out? Joining us now is UN Ambassador John Bolton, former ambassador to the United Nations, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and Fox News contributor. Good morning, Ambassador.
Good morning, Eric. Glad to be with you.
Good. We just saw Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, and apparently Iran is helping Assad. Russia is helping Assad, and Secretary of State John Kerry is telling him to stop it. But is anyone listening?
Well, they're not listening in Moscow and Tehran, that's for sure. Obviously, both Russia and Iran have been aiding Assad during these hostilities over the last 2 years. I think it's one of the main reasons Assad stayed in power. But within the last several months, there seems to me to be little doubt but that Iran and Russia have both stepped up the quantity and quality of the assistance that they're providing. More sophisticated communications and targeting capabilities, more financial assistance, bringing in Hezbollah, which is a terrorist organization funded by Iran, and now, most significantly, Russia reaffirming it will sell a very sophisticated air defense system known as the S-300 to Syria. When you combine that with sales of MiG planes, sales of anti-ship missiles, and the deployment of over a dozen additional Russian warships to the Syrian area of the Mediterranean, all speaks of a significant Russian commitment and a significant Iranian commitment to keeping Assad in power.
Apparently there are Iranian drones, there are Iranian mortar units, jamming equipment. Let's take a look at those S-300 Russian missiles. Man, oh man, if they're deployed, what does that mean for a potential no-fly zone that could be imposed by the West?
Well, these missiles and radars that comprise the S-300, not necessarily the most sophisticated Russia has, but they are capable, in most analyst estimation, of defeating any aircraft other than stealth aircraft. Israel does not have stealth aircraft at present. Obviously, NATO forces, the United States do. But it dramatically escalates the sophistication that's available to Syria and potentially to Hezbollah in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon to protect themselves. So it's a signal militarily to Israel and the West. It's also a big political signal as well that Russia really is all in here to keep Assad in power.
And it's not just those missiles. There are reports that they're going to sell more MiGs to Syria. That really does complicate the situation.
Right, and I think it demonstrates Russia's not about to let Assad fall. So while Secretary of State Kerry has spent the last several months persuading Russia to sponsor a peace conference in Syria, the Russians are doing everything they can to make sure that the peace conference result is preordained, namely that Assad is not going to negotiate to step out of power. I think that's been clear for a long time. The Russians do not share our interest in moving Assad out. Their interest is diametrically the opposite of ours in Syria, and that's why the Obama administration's effort to join with Russia the last 2.5 years has failed.
Meanwhile, there's a rather blunt op-ed that former British Prime Minister Tony Blair has written in the Daily Mail in London about the Muslim religion, about Assad, claiming he's conducting ethnic cleansing. And look what Tony Blair writes this morning. He says, there is not a problem with Islam. There is a problem within Islam, from the adherence of an ideology that is a strain within Islam, and we have to put it on the table and be honest about it. Here is a world leader coming out attacking violent extremist Islam. Your reaction?
Well, I think he's a very courageous man. I've thought that for a long time, and I think he puts it very well in that passage you just read. It's not a problem with Islam, it's a problem within Islam. And if you're not prepared to talk about it, if you're not prepared to acknowledge the threat of radical Islamicists and the terrorist ideology that they profess, how are you ever going to be able to analyze and defend against it? I think that's one of our biggest problems here. People are afraid to offend Muslims generally by talking about Islamic terrorism when it's Muslims generally who are the biggest victims of Islamic terrorism. So I think perhaps Blair's courage in the UK could be a symbol here in the United States that we do need to put this on the table and talk about it.
And we've seen the attacks in London, we saw the attacks in Boston, of course. Finally, what do we do about it?
Well, I think that the idea that President Obama espoused at his National Defense University speech 2 weeks ago, that the war on terror is basically over, is manifestly false. It just flies in the face of the evidence that's right in front of us. And we need to put that on the table, too. We're never going to prevail over the terrorists if we don't admit they exist.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you, as always, every Sunday for your insight. Good to see you.
Thank you, Eric.
Chapter 39. Therefore, thou son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And I will turn thee back, and leave but the sixth part of thee, and will cause thee to come up from the north parts, and will bring thee upon the mountains of Israel, and I will smite thy bow out of thy left hand, and will cause thine arrows to fall out of thy right hand. Thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, thou and all thy bands, and the people that is with thee. I will give thee unto the ravenous birds of every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured. Thou shalt fall upon the open field, for I have spoken it, saith the Lord God. And I will send a fire on Magog, and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles, and they shall know that I am the Lord. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them pollute my holy name any more. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, the Holy One in Israel. Behold, it is come, and it is done, saith the Lord God. This is the day whereof I have spoken. And they that dwell in the cities of Israel shall go forth, and shall set on fire, and burn the weapons, both the shields and the bucklers, the bows and the arrows, and the hand-staves and the spears, and they shall burn them with fire 7 years, so that they shall take no wood out of the field, neither cut down any out of the forests, for they shall burn the weapons with fire. And they shall spoil those that spoiled them, and rob those that robbed them, saith the Lord God. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will give unto Gog a place there of graves in Israel, the valley of the passengers on the east of the sea. And it shall stop the noses of the passengers. And there shall they bury Gog and all his multitude. And they shall call it the valley of Hamon Gog. And 7 months shall the house of Israel be burying of them, that they may cleanse the land. Yea, all the people of the land shall bury them. And it shall be to them a renown, the day that I shall be glorified, saith the Lord God. They shall sever out men of continual employment, passing through the land, to bury with the passengers those that remain upon the face of the earth, to cleanse it. After the end of 7 months shall they search. And the passengers that pass through the land, when any seeth a man's bone, then shall he set up a sign by it, till the buriers have buried it in the valley of Hamon Gog. And also the name of the city shall be Hamona. Thus shall they cleanse the land. And thou, son of man, thus saith the Lord God, Speak unto every feathered fowl, and to every beast of the field. Assemble yourselves, and come, gather yourselves on every side to my sacrifice that I do sacrifice for you, even a great sacrifice upon the mountains of Israel, that ye may eat flesh and drink blood. Ye shall eat the flesh of the mighty, and drink the blood of the princes of the earth, of rams, of lambs, and of goats, of bullocks, all of them fatlings of Bashan. And ye shall eat fat till ye be full, and drink blood till ye be drunken of my sacrifice, which I have sacrificed for you. Thus ye shall be filled at my table, with horses and chariots, with mighty men, and with all men of war, saith the Lord God. And I will set my glory among the heathen, and all the heathen shall see my judgment that I have executed, and my hand that I have laid upon them. So the house of Israel shall know that I am the Lord their God from that day and forward. And the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, because they trespassed against me. Therefore hid I my face from them, and gave them into the hand of their enemies. So fell they all by the sword. According to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions have I done unto them, and hid my face from them. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, Now will I bring again the captivity of Jacob, and have mercy upon the whole house of Israel, and will be jealous for my holy name. After that they have borne their shame, and all their trespasses whereby they have trespassed against me, when they dwelt safely in their land, and none made them afraid. When I have brought them again from the people, and gathered them out of their enemies' lands, and am sanctified in them in the sight of many nations, then shall they know that I am the Lord their God, which caused them to be led into captivity among the heathen. But I have gathered them unto their own land, and have left none of them any more there. Neither will I hide my face any more from them, for I have poured out my spirit upon the house of Israel, saith the Lord God.